But there was another girl there as well, Mary. Mary was not stunning. She was tall too, slightly overweight. She wasn't when she got to know me. She made herself as lovely as she could. And I just didn't want her to be left out. And an earnestness that was in me, thank God, probably from Mum. And Dad, he's earnest, goodness. She was the one that I was actually in relationship with for the next 4 or 5 years. When I was at uni, I used to go home on a Friday night, and there was no home. Mum and Dad had split up, and the house was sold and being built on, I can't remember. And I'd sleep on her parents' living room floor with Heidi the dog, big black old Labrador, female, sweetheart. And the parents were extremely working class. Her dad actually commuted to London, but he was a maintenance man. Yeah. I was way out of my class. You know, I was affluent middle class background. And they were working class. They did own their own house in those days. Working class hadn't been stripped of house ownership like now, increasingly, in our Western societies. You could own a house. It was a semi-detached bungalow. I knew I was out of my class, but that was part of my socialist view. That was fine. And so glad they accepted me, and they did. Yeah, well, they thought I was quite a catch for their daughter. And I was. And I was in earnest too. I was not, I was not having anyone on. I was in earnest. And she was good to me. And she got prettier. And it was lovely to see her flourish under my love and care of her. And she loved me. Ah, thank you, Heavenly Father, for these lovely people you've given me. Made life so good. Love you, Lord. Well, Mary was faithful and true. In my 3rd year, that's the final year of undergraduate study at Essex University, Colchester. She came to live with me in a house we were renting, owned by one of the lecturers in the department, an Irishman, who taught me international trade. I don't know why he wasn't living in it. Perhaps he'd broken up from his wife.
I don't know what was going on there. Perhaps he went away for a year.
Yeah. Because he wasn't, I don't know, can't remember details. So I was experiencing married life. It was a nightmare. Well, it was fun in many ways. I remember the vicar used to call it, we were in a small satellite town of Colchester called Marks Day, 5 miles away, straight run down the A road, 127. He would call occasionally, like once a month, because we were in his parish, you see. I thought this was rather quaint. I have no idea how to relate to him. He's a vicar, I don't think he actually came in. I don't know if we invited him in or not. No, I don't think so. But, how are you all right? And you're a couple. I mean, he was very outwardly accepting, we didn't think a great deal about it, It's just interesting. We're recognised as a couple even by the local vicar. But Mary, sadly to say, was not trained by her mum, and she was an absolute heap at home. I was used to absolute order. Nothing's out of place in my dad's house. Why so-and-so not in its right place? I mean, this was not that. There's no way Marshall could adjust to this. I mean, she'd be in her dressing gown into the afternoon. I mean, still looking at magazines and, not doing a stroke of housework or really cooking or anything. And you just think, I'm going to carry this lady through life. This is no good. I said, look, love, this is just not going to work. I'm not going to leave you. But could you find someone else, sweetheart? And she worked. I mean, in fairness, we were both young and we were single living together, weren't we? You know what I mean? And she was working in London. So she was catching the train each day and I'd run her to the station and then go on to university, And she was working for a bearing company. Can't remember what they were called now, but they had 40% of the world's bearing market, I think, and the offices were in London, head offices, international offices. And, well, she did. And this was my third year at university. I'll find the date of that at some point. Must have been, I'll say 1969, somewhere around there. I'll leave a gap here to change the date.
No, it must have been 1970.
So yes, she did. And I was getting desperate. I mean, I was wondering what on earth my future was. Remember, I didn't know God at this stage. No way. And I was pining that somehow I was being unfaithful and untrue in breaking this relationship, but I just couldn't see it working, It sort of had to be done, and I wanted to do it the best way possible. And I wasn't finding anyone else. I don't think I was looking. I was just lamenting. And, yeah, she did find someone else. And she said, I found someone after a few months. We'd been together the best part of a year or something. But I'd been going out with her in a total of something like 4 to 5 years by then, you see what I mean? So I'd known her a while. And I was committed to her as husband and wife, but I was terminating it. And so she was happy. It was a good move. Oh, but Marshall wasn't. Because now Marshall had nobody, and he was used to having somebody. And he was despairing now. And we wound up the house, of course, and, well, it was at my finals, so it would have been 1971, sorry, not 69. And I moved into Towers again, which I'd been living in my first year. University accommodation on campus. And I felt wretched and didn't know how to go back to just being a sort of student again. I mean, living as a student instead of living as a married student. Just different, totally different. But, God always came to my rescue. It was fantastic. I've noticed how I always say tall, don't I? I think by then I was 6'3" without knowing it. But anyway, secretary to one of my professors, Jill, tall, very attractive physically, goodness, and showy. Again, a bit like Belinda in that way, but not as extravagantly good looking, but good enough. Look, I was a secular young man. I chatted her up, and she was pleased to relate and be going out with the one of the whiz academics of his year, final each year, and she's working for the professor that lectures to them and so on, you know. And her dad, well, her mum and dad ran a shop. Oh my goodness, this was right wing, wasn't it? Oh, I wouldn't say we were thinking eye to eye on political matters, and how I steered off them is by the grace of God. I don't know how. My first real experience of understanding small business and the terrible self-interest of the small businessman that, well, he wouldn't survive otherwise. It's a nightmare of a world he's in, really. But they did survive, and they were doing very well with a shop that had been previously a provision shop, and they switched to being a news agent and meeting all the passive addictions of modern living, including selling gifts, which seemed to make them some income as well. Good-sized premises for England, anyway, a corner shop in a small seaside town called Holland-on-Sea, near Clacton, part of Clacton in a way. Well, she was good to me too, and again she became lovelier through the relationship. And I realised I was doing what Linda had done with me. Linda had brought me out and made me a more marketable sort of partner to be, you know, boyfriend. And I had the same effect on the girls. They spruce themselves up. If they were slightly overweight, you just realised they were less so. The more you knew them, and the happier they were, and they blossomed. And I realised just how people blossom under love. Beautiful. Absolutely beautiful. And she was good to me. And she got me through an extremely difficult period there as I switched to taking a degree, a master's now. And another wonderful gift. I did realise how incredible it was. It was a miracle. I mean, without God, if you know what I mean. The housing department said, would you like to be the janitor of, the caretaker, the organiser of a student house in Clacton, which was, I don't know, some good distance away, half an hour's drive. And the students were living there because accommodation was scarce and where we were on the fringe of Colchester. And, we'd outgrown the campus accommodation by a long way. And I said, yeah. And of course it was free rent, wasn't it? Wow. I needed this because I hadn't got a grant, and I was doing a master's, and I was doing it on a loan. Bank loan. University Bank. Well, Barclays Bank, but their branch at the university. So I got my accommodation free. I don't know if the department had asked or knew or found out. I'm not sure how it worked. But the angels were working without me knowing, of course. And I have to say I was brilliant at this job. I realised from the very start the key of running this house, which was in a residential area, almost in the middle of town, Clacton. You had to somehow make peace with the neighbours. Now, my student body was anything but peace. I mean, the students in the house were, they'd come back noisy at night. They had junk cars. I mean, students, well, you know what students can be, don't you? How was I to be on good terms with the neighbours? That was going to be everything. Right, I got to know the neighbours. I mean, this was absolute social engineering strategy, I can tell you. I mean, the lady on one side with her, I think he may have been an accountant or something. His wife, she would talk. I mean, she would talk for 3/4 of an hour. And he was embarrassed that I was so patient and just listened and talked with her. And she thought I was wonderful, and he thought I was amazing. I mean, I had a Ford Consul junk car which was rotting in the back garden, and Mum had funded me to buy a Rover 100, which only cost about something crazy like £130. But she put up the funds, and I wouldn't have had it otherwise. And this was a lovely car, old of course, but magnificent car. The old Rovers were, Rover 100. And I mean, the sort of luxury when I gave a lift to one of my professors, how does a student afford this car? I said, well, it's a junk car really, because it's not worth anything. But it's been a wonderful car in its day, hasn't it? And he was really nice to me, of course, encouraging another young student, you know. Yeah. But yes, this neighbour says to me, look, your car's not safe on the forecourt next door because it's known to be student cars. You can park it in our driveway if you like. We don't drive. Wow. I mean, my relationship with the neighbours was so good that in the entire year I was there were no complaints to housing about the students in the Clacton student house. What an achievement. I mean, I don't mean the students had become saintly either. That's one of my achievements in life, that was. Thank you, Heavenly Dad. Isn't it amazing? I can thank God for them now, these things. And I was just astonished at my good fortune in those days. I just took it as good fortune and something to do with my ability, and, you know. But now, on reflection, I just think, wow, but for the grace of God, I mean, no way could I have got through this jungle, you know. Thank you. He was now again, you see, there's this influence going on. He's probably praying for me. He was Catholic, her husband. I'd see him go off in the morning. I said, where do you go each morning? He said, oh, I go and take Mass at the Catholic Church. Well, this is totally foreign to me, of course. I could only say, oh. You know, what the hell's that? I mean, really? I mean, I knew what it was, but I just thought, really? An accountant? Huh? Pardon? This doesn't quite add up. I wonder what this is about. Anyway, very nice neighbour, and I'm getting on well with him. That's what matters. So, I never actually went with him, of course. I mean, I couldn't imagine doing that. I mean, no. But on reflection, I bet the two of them were praying for me. In a Catholic way. Oh my goodness, I'm so sorry. I've done 38 minutes. Oh, this man's still so in love with himself. How can he pretend to be godly? Let me stop. Thank you, Heavenly Dad.